What's up, guys? How's it going? A little Tuesday night hangout. Just a tiny bit later than usual, but basically the standard schedule. It's the off season and some things, out of schedule, out of the ordinary, things like that. It'd be great to be getting ready for the game, of course, and playoffs and all that, but we're not. It was maybe more so a little bit depressing of just watching those games this past weekend and realizing what could have possibly been and some opportunity the Eagles had. It would have been going to Chicago. A lot of heroics that almost sunk the Rams, but still, it's like, man, you look at what the Eagles could have been, might have been. I don't know. But we can talk about a little bit of that, get into other stuff with the coaching candidate, offensive coordinator search, and everything else there. Anthony Dibona in the house, of course. Shout out to the Ant-Man. Just brief, quick takeaways from the NFL playoffs and watching those.
All of my predictions were basically wrong, so apologies. Hopefully nobody bet any money on any of those. It was a rough week for my predictions. I feel like it's been a rough year for my predictions, but also biggest zooming out takeaway of that whole round was just does quarterback play matter anymore apparently? Because it felt like no quarterbacks
I mean, seriously,
really had an outstanding performance, and there was a ton of turnovers, a ton of just pedestrian performances, even by the teams that won. So obviously, quarterback play matters. I'm being a little stretching there a little bit, but it is interesting, right? Because Jalen Hurts gets ripped apart whenever he has 180 passing yards or only throws for a touchdown and 250 yards. But then, I don't know. It's just very odd because it feels like he's held to a different standard than everybody else, including Josh Allen, which has been a topic of discussion in the media. But it was very, very odd round overall.
It was. I am seeing your side. You seem to be okay, but on the YouTube side, it's a little bit blurry. So I don't know if you want to
I'll back out,
jump out, and quickly come back in, and maybe we'll fix that.
No problem.
So
all right, sorry.
We'll get it fixed. We'll try again one more time. I could hear him okay, and I could see him okay on my side, but I'm seeing some of y'all's comments. So we will start that one again here in a second. So Anthony jumps back in, but. Defense wins championships. I think we saw that more so than anything else in the playoffs so far. I think for the divisional round, Anthony was mentioning it there, but the Seahawks, obviously, that might have been the most, I don't know, just a realization of okay, what the Eagles could have done if they had a legit offense on the field of taking advantage of the Niners and running the football, just dictating terms. I know that the Niners were more banged up in the game against the Seahawks than they were against us, but they were still banged up against us. So, it's all right. Unfortunately, that's what it was. But, if the Eagles can right the ship, offensive coordinator search, I think will be positive, I suppose. Just optimistic of sorts, and there's a lot of candidates out there. I've seen some people going oh my gosh, the Eagles are taking forever and we're not getting the guy. They're just twiddling their thumbs. They're not on top of things. Overall, you look across the league, what offensive coordinators have been hired that you gone, oh shoot, we should have jumped on there and been able to bring them in for an interview. They've brought in a lot for an interview, but which ones have been hired where you're shoot, that was a missed opportunity, just so far right now, right? Because if you look about it as far as head coaching candidates, some of those have been, but you are never going to get those. Stefanski, Harbaugh, you were never going to get a head coach candidate. So to me, I'm looking at it saying, hey, look, the offensive coordinators is the bigger ramifications there. Anthony is back, and it looks good. I think we should be fine.
I'm looking all right.
Should be good. Yeah. I was just
sorry about that.
All good. I was just talking about offensive coordinators and some of the topics that we've had of I don't know if it's just the overreaction or maybe anxiety, perhaps, wherever that necessarily falls. But what offensive coordinators have been taken off the board so far, to have an immediate reaction where you're oh my gosh, the Eagles just totally missed out. So far, it's just the head coaching candidates, which makes sense because they're, if there's a head coaching job anywhere at all in the realm of possibility, I don't think someone's going to go, yeah, let me just say yes to an offensive coordinator position, right? Just let them play out. So it's probably the reasons for taking a whole lot longer. I'm not super concerned as of right now, but yes, there's a lot of others that are out there so far. But
Yeah, it feels like, I don't know, everybody's waiting for maybe like the Mike McDaniel domino to fall, right? Like
Sure.
maybe
Yeah.
everybody's kind of waiting to see where he lands because he seems kind of like the big haul of this. If he doesn't land a head coaching job, of course, right? It's a little fishy that he canceled his visit or whatever it was, the meeting that he was supposed to have with the Browns, right?
Yeah. The
And
Browns
now
one.
it's like, oh, he's going to interview or he just interviewed with the Chargers for their OC position. So like, is that a done deal? So I don't know. It feels like once he finds a landing spot, then maybe we'll see all these other guys like Daboll. But like you said, not only the OC jobs that are open, but a ton of head coaching jobs are still open, right? So
Hmm.
a lot of these guys that are considered like the top of the top for the OC job are also in the running for these head coaching jobs, right? So it's like it's going to be a longer process, and I tweeted about that, and I think I mentioned it the last time we got together, but it's going to be a longer, more drawn out process than it was when they got Kellen Moore.
Yeah. And as it should be, leaving no stone unturned. I can't remember exactly, but it was later on, as you're mentioning there, as far as the news that was reported. It was January 24th, I think, that Brian Johnson, officially, okay, they're moving on from him. The 24th, and like 4 days later was Kellen Moore that was getting hired. So, like, if we're going based on that timeline, there's another 4 days or so before the Eagles would have necessarily been like, hey, Kevin Patullo is gone. So it's cool for them to say, yes, we are moving on, and we understand that's where they've made their intentions for the past week now that we're sitting at. But I can't. I mean, there's no way it was this number. I don't know how many head coaching openings were there when Brian Johnson was pull the plug there and go with Kellen Moore, but it was not 9, 10 head coaching opportunities, and I know a couple of those have been filled.
Wait, got it. Sorry to cut you off. According to Adam Schefter, Diana Rossini, and Tom Pelissero, the Chargers plan to hire Mike McDaniel as their offensive coordinator. So
Okay,
3 different reports just
well,
came out. Mike McDaniel's going to the Chargers, which is
did I
good
just
timing.
jinx that? I guess.
I guess.
I literally just said, well, which offensive coordinator has been, off the table like
Justin
2 minutes
Herbert, I
prior?
guess.
Well, that kind of sucks a little bit.
Come on, high spirits. Let's
Yeah,
go.
we'll be positive. We'll find.
I mean, it seems
It's
like my
not the
connection is bad
only
again
option.
too.
Yeah, it's
I don't know
gotten a
what's
little
going
blurry.
on.
It's a little bit negative along with the news. So
So should I back out again? Maybe try resetting everything and see what
yeah,
I can
you can
figure out.
try to. Yeah, that's
I don't
fine.
want to hurt the people here. Sorry,
No, you're
everybody.
good. You're good. Let me see if I can bump this thing over. And I'll back out. Well, my apologies. I jinxed it a little bit. So he's not going to Tampa. That's a certainty. Not going to Tampa, but there it is. Dolphins former head coach, Mike McDaniel, expected to become Chargers offensive coordinator, barring a change of heart. Jeff Darlington and Adam Schefter breaking the news. Having dinner, clearly won him. I don't know what the full tweet says, but the expectation across the league is that McDaniel will be staying in LA. All right, well, that's that. There's still positive options out there, but man, the timing of it. I literally just said, what offense coordinator is off the table. That is the one outside of Joe Brady. So Joe Brady's still available. It just and what's interesting too, because Jeff Darlington is one of those, right? You see the tweet. Jeff Darlington is one of those that announced that Mike McDaniel would begin an interview with Philly. So it's not a. I don't think it's a stretch necessarily to say the Eagles reached out to try to make something happen. Because if Jeff Darlington, who was in Miami and getting lots of info, obviously because he's reporting this news too, but he's got a lot of connections there, was saying that it was kind of a foregone conclusion, then I was just holding out hope, saying like, all right, well, look, if Darlington says it, eventually the Eagles are going to get in there. I was expecting that he's potentially looking to get a head coaching job, and there you go. It's official. So, Mike McDaniel off the board. Well, Daboll is probably, realistically, Daboll's probably on list, right? I think if we're doing the math, a little logic there. Yes, Rich just announced. I know that's why we got the tweet up there. Mike McDaniel. I think realistically, it's Daboll, but for me personally, I'm kind of hoping they go to Joe Brady. Diego get Joe Brady quick. Yeah. Get moving. Don't take too long. Man, that's crazy. Well, we're going to get Anthony back. He was making sure his connection. In the meantime, a couple super chats. Appreciate you guys. Gonzalo with a 2. Gave Daboll what he wants. He's right up there at the list. What does he want, though, necessarily, right? Like, they've made it pretty obvious, the Eagles have, in the front office, of saying, like, Sirianni's not going to be necessarily involved or very much at all. The OC is going to be able to get in and dictate terms, whatever he wants to necessarily run. He's going to have autonomy, full autonomy, if you believe that, but that's the report. I mean, what else could he possibly ask for? I don't know. You got two good, legit options that I would be optimistic about. I mentioned this too, though, regardless of who they take or go with for offensive coordinator, it will be positive in the sense of it's not Kevin Patullo. I know that's like, glass half full, but it's like it could be just a couple drops of the glass, but it's better than Kevin Patullo. But if it's Daboll or if it's Joe Brady, I think that there's quite a bit of optimism. But yes, officially, Mike McDaniel is off the board as third time's the charm, hopefully. I think this one, you're clear now.
We'll see.
Hopefully
We'll
it
see.
works.
I see if it stays this way.
Gonzalo was saying, give Daboll what he wants. Really quickly, by the way, just before we get into that, and Anthony gives his take and everything else for people jumping in now, we're seeing a little uptick, obviously, with the news of Mike McDaniel going to the Chargers, unless barring something crazy, but according to Adam Schefter and Jeff Darlington. Feel free to get signed up with Underdog. Scan the QR code, use code Philly Special, or click the link in the description. $5 play gets you $75 in bonus funds. Was trying to make this happen to do Super Bowl tickets to the big game. It's not impossible, but we are still way I was hoping, I think, Eagles being out of it understandably and all that, but we're like 300 signups away. So it's not impossible. Like, if everybody on the stream signed up, played a draft league, because you could do that in Philly. I understand you can't play the pick'em options, but if you want to play a draft league, you can get in on that. Other states, you probably can play the pick'em or within the videos. It's still possible. But if we can, going to give away tickets to the big game. If not, we'll still end up doing something to celebrate and everything else. But trying to make that happen. Either way, shout out to Underdog, season-long sponsor. Kudos to them. And when you do get signed up, use code Philly Special. $5 play, like I mentioned, $75 in bonus funds. You have a couple different bits of info and optimism and everything else. Now, there's several people on this stream that have said Daboll, and there's some excitement there. Obviously, Gonzalo says give Daboll what he wants. So it's not all pessimistic, but I do feel like the general consensus has been, or maybe just a slight majority has been, yeah, Daboll's kind of who it feels like is going to be with the Eagles. And okay, it's better than Kevin Patullo, but like a little bit of a meh. Like, it doesn't just get people totally fired up for him to be the offensive coordinator. You have a couple other stats from it.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to start with when the Eagles hired both Shane Steichen and Justin Herbert to be their OCs, right? I don't think there was a lot of skepticism with both of those hires too, right? There were people
You mean Kellen
saying
Moore, right?
Sorry, Kellen Moore. Who did I say?
You said Justin Herbert, but I know that's the quarterback that he was with. You're good.
My mind's all over the place right now with this connection and stuff, trying to figure it out. But yeah, with Shane Steichen especially, Chargers fans apparently hated him, right? It seemed like they were happy to see him go. They didn't mind that he went to the Eagles. Then with Kellen Moore, like, Cowboys fans were trashing him on the way out. They were like, oh, he's going to fail in Philadelphia. So, and both of those coordinators ended up leading the Eagles to the Super Bowl. They were part of that plan, right? So I know Brian Daboll might not be the flashiest name. He's not going to bring a ton of motion that Mike McDaniel utilizes and all of that stuff, but he is just a very effective offense coordinator. I know the teams in New York weren't the best, but look at the talent he was working with, right? I mean, he took Daniel Jones and that team to the playoffs, which I still think is pretty impressive when nobody expected them. Like, his entire tenure there, which I don't know if it says more about the franchise or more about him, but there were really no high expectations for that team, right? It felt like every year their win-loss was set at like 6, maybe 7, and that was like the high, right? Then there's a lot of years where it was like 5 wins, like that was their over-under. So it's not like he was working with a ton of great talent and like fell flat in his face. And also because everybody that's anti Brian Daboll sends me the charts on Twitter, and I went back and forth with people
Seen a lot
where
of
it's
those.
like, oh, his rankings, especially early in his career when he was coaching Matt Moore and Matt Castle. Like those are his quarterbacks. And then people are like, oh, Colt McCoy. Like, why didn't he have great offenses? I mean, like, look at the quarterbacks he was working with. But also, and I teased this to Josh before we started the show, that if you look at some of the talent that he did have during those early years, from 2009 to 2012, when he was the OC of 3 different teams, it was the Browns, the Chiefs, and the Dolphins, he actually got the best out of most of those players too. So if you look at Jerome Harrison with the Browns, who wasn't regarded as a great running back by any means during his career, he ended up playing with the Eagles towards the end of his career. But in 2009, when Brian Daboll was his OC, he had a career high 862 rushing yards. The following year, Peyton Hillis ended up getting the Madden cover. 2010, were you gonna say something?
Sorry, you good to run this? I gotta run. It's an emergency, but if you're good to keep just running the stream, I think it's just a quick one, but I gotta jump.
Okay.
So you good?
All right, no problem.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I'm good. All right. So as I was saying, just Brian Daboll overall, what he's been doing with like the talent that he's been given throughout his career, right? Peyton Hillis, who was really a nobody before he went to Cleveland and played under Brian Daboll. He's never had more than 600 rushing yards in a single season in his career. And then the 1 year he was with Brian Daboll, he had 1,177 rushing yards and then kind of fell off the face of the earth after that, right? So Brian Daboll maximized his career. Reggie Bush in 2011, when Brian Daboll was the OC in Miami, had a career high 1,086 rushing yards. And then in 2012, Jamar Charles, who is a great running back, everybody regards him as maybe a potential future Hall of Famer, where he was one of the best during that era that he was in the NFL. He also recorded a career high 1,509 rushing yards when Brian Daboll was his OC. So I just don't really understand why people tear Brian Daboll down. And then later in his career, obviously he was the OC of the Bills for several years, and he's credited for kind of making the best and the most out of Josh Allen early in his career and helping turn that team around, especially once they got Stephon Diggs. So it's very odd to see the way that Brian Daboll is regarded by Eagles fans. I think maybe the Giants years kind of painted him wrongly in their eyes. But even during his tenure with the Bills, I mean, Josh Allen had his career high in passing yards, passing touchdowns, and rushing yards when Brian Daboll was his OC. So I know Joe Brady gets a lot of credit for what Josh Allen has done, but Brian Daboll played a big part in that as well. And even Stephon Diggs recorded a single season career high in both receptions and receiving yards under Brian Daboll. So I don't understand the negative light. It seems like whenever he has had really good talent to work with, he's maximized that. So I don't necessarily understand why he's viewed as such a bad option. I know he's not Mike McDaniel, like I said, where he utilizes a ton of fancy motion, and you saw Tyreek Hill moving into those motions right before the snap and things like that. So everybody in the chat, you can let me know who your top choice is. But right now, I had Brian Daboll before Mike McDaniel headed to the Chargers as my number one option, and I'm interested to see what all of you think as well. Peyton Hillis was a crazy Madden cover. I mean, that's true. There was some interesting Madden covers back in the day, but Peyton Hillis, especially with that one year where, like I said, Brian Daboll was a big part of that. It's funny that he had that 1 year with Brian Daboll, and then if you look at his career outside of that, Peyton Hillis was essentially, I don't want to say a nobody, but he didn't live up to those expectations that Madden cover definitely placed on him. Oh, and here's another updated report. Josh, unfortunately, isn't here to add this to the screen for you all, but according to Jeff Darlington of ESPN, he said the Bucs and the Eagles both pursued McDaniel as their top OC target. The Bucs were especially diligent in their courtship, and McDaniel was very engaged with them throughout. Ultimately, the lure of getting back to California and coaching Justin Herbert proved strongest. Which is interesting because there was a lot of skepticism about Mike McDaniel and would he want to go to a cold weather city, because there was an early report about Tampa Bay being his preferred option. Now he's going to LA, where obviously the weather in California is regarded as some of the best in the country. He's going to be in a dome for at least half of his games, right? So definitely seems like a fitting choice for him, both with Justin Herbert already there and kind of the way that he calls an offense, not having to deal with the elements too much. I know Eagles fans will be upset, especially the ones that wanted to see McDaniel land here, but I can understand his decision as well. Sorry, I'm trying to work through the chat here. I don't have the extra screens that Josh has available on his side. Zack Robinson, yeah. I mean, he's another guy. I had him 5th on my initial list, and that included Kevin Stefanski, who obviously left, Todd Monken, who seems like he's going to go to the Giants. Who knows? That situation is kind of still up in the air. It seems like he's working through his opportunity as a potential head coach before he decides what he's going to take as an OC. But a lot of people seem to report that he was going to follow John Harbaugh, but then he was taking an interview with the Browns for their head coaching vacancy. So we'll see what happens there. But Zack Robinson, a Sean McVay guy, if you look maybe like 2 years ago before he joined the Falcons, he was kind of regarded as in the same breath as like Nathan Scheelhaase is now with the Rams, where it's like this intriguing passing game coordinator, former quarterback. Like there was a lot of intrigue around him. And when the Falcons landed him, it was like, whoa, that's a home run hire. Like he looks like he's going to be that next guy in the McVay tree and the Shanahan roots and through all of it. But it just didn't work out in Atlanta, obviously, right? I mean, the second year that he was there, they had 3 All-Pros on offense. Bijan Robinson was an first-team All-Pro as a running back, and then second-team All-Pro as all-purpose or whatever it was that they called it. So I think overall he's another guy that just gets a lot of flack because I guess he didn't maximize the potential that they had in Atlanta. But that team just overall, I don't think it was the best. The quarterback situation was a little weird, obviously, with Michael Penix is being injured, and then Kirk Cousins coming in, and then Kirk Cousins, did he want to be there? Did he not? Was he hurt? Was he not? It was just a lot of weird stuff with that team overall. The vibe, it felt like Raheem Morris was kind of on the hot seat the entire time. So how confident could Zack Robinson really be in that role and in his standing with the team? So just a lot of odd things around that whole situation. But overall, I don't think it would be the end of the world if Zack Robinson was the guy, right? They interviewed him relatively early in the process. And like I said, if this was 2 years ago, it felt like that would have been like one of the home run hires of the process. But now, because of this season, of all the names that have been available, all the head coaches that were fired that now could be prominent offense coordinators, it feels like Zack Robinson is lower on the totem pole, but I don't think it would be end of the world. I think Kevin Patullo set the bar so incredibly low for the offense coordinator in Philadelphia that almost any of these guys would be an improvement. It just comes down to how much of an improvement. And one thing about Zack Robinson is I believe the Rams were up there, maybe even first in the NFL as far as their motion usage, right? So that would be a big shift from what we've seen in Philadelphia, especially in recent years. But I don't think it's necessarily like a completely different offense, right? Like he does a lot of stuff that they were trying to do this year with like the under center and things like he does utilize some pistol. I know that was a big criticism of that offense where do you want to have Jalen Hurts in that situation? Does that allow him to maximize his legs, things like that? So there would be some crossover, but I don't think it would be a total overhaul like hiring Mike McDaniel would be, where that offense is nothing like Jalen Hurts has ever operated. So that's why I never had Mike McDaniel in my top 5 to begin with. I know people thought I was crazy for doing so, but I thought it was too drastic of a shift and too much of a departure from what Jalen Hurts has done throughout his career, even dating back to college, where I wasn't sure if it would be too much of a fit. Then you had the aspect of Vic Fangio and McDaniel coexisting in the building. What was their relationship like? They didn't really speak too much on that kind of divorce in Miami. So that whole situation would be a little bit odd, in my opinion. And now, obviously, he landed with the Chargers. So Casey Markovich, thank you for the $5 super chat. He said, "Go Birds. Funny how the media always glazing Josh Allen. Quote, unquote, this was his year. I don't think he will ever win a Super Bowl. Laugh out loud." I mean, if you look at the AFC as a whole, right, it felt like this was going to be his best shot to do it. I mean, no Patrick Mahomes, no Lamar Jackson, no Joe Burrow. It was like if there was any year that Josh Allen was going to kind of get over that hump in the AFC, it was going to be this year, right? Unfortunately, didn't work out. They kind of he threw the game away. He fumbled the game away. It was a mess for Buffalo, and that ultimately led to Sean McDermott getting fired, right? And they're changing things there. But I also don't know, like the skill position talent around him wasn't the best. I know James Cook led the NFL in rushing. He was phenomenal, but the passing targets outside of the tight ends wasn't that great. And that's kind of their own fault, right? They kind of put themselves in their own grave by trading away Stephon Diggs. And maybe they thought they were the Chiefs when they got rid of Tyreek Hill and were still able to win Super Bowls. Clearly that plan backfired and they weren't able to capitalize. And Keon Coleman, as far as like a high draft pick, didn't pan out as well as they thought he would. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just definitely was the year that Josh Allen should have taken advantage of the kind of the field in the AFC. But it just didn't happen. And I don't know if it's ever going to happen, because does changing the head coach really change things? Like, are they going to promote Joe Brady? Are they going to hire a Davis Webb? Like, it feels like that roster needs a lot more work than necessarily the head coach needed to be changed. And I thought Brandon Beane would have been fired, but they decided to fire the head coach and keep the GM around. They actually promoted him. So I don't know what's going on in Buffalo right now, but it's certainly an odd situation. Another super chat here from Corporate B Pumper. Thank you for the $5. He said, literally no real reports that the Eagles were going to interview McDaniel. Straight teasers. Now we throw in Eagles in these tweets, something fishy. So, there were some like whispers. Jeff Darlington put out a thing where somebody had replied to one of his other tweets asking if the Eagles were going to ever interview McDaniel. It didn't happen. Well, but now we don't know if it didn't happen, but it seemed like there was never another report saying like, oh, the interview was definitely happening today or not happening today. And ultimately he landed in Los Angeles, right? There was never a report that he was interviewing with Philly officially. The teams don't have to announce that officially either. So I don't think it's more so like I think the Eagles had him probably as a top target, but they were trying to work through all these schedules, right? Like they were a little bit late to the party. So now McDaniel had these interviews scheduled or whatever it was with these other teams, whether it was head coaching or offensive coordinator vacancies, and the Eagles kind of had to fill in the cracks. So they're not just going to sit on their hands while they're waiting to finally talk to McDaniel, right? They're going to try and talk to a Zack Robinson and a Brian Daboll and all these other guys. So were they really interested? I do think so, but obviously they didn't even seem like to get their chance to really sit down with them and talk.
There we go. Sorry about that. I'm back.
Everything good?
Momentarily. So we're good for now, but people know just having children and everything else, little bath time stuff of emergency, but we're good for now. So appreciate everybody. Yeah,
I got through
leaving immediately, but
all of the recent super chats except for the latest from Casey Markovich.
Okay,
the Bills will complain. I didn't do that one.
Here on the others. Okay, awesome. I appreciate that. As far as the Eagles being interested, I don't know if you covered or talked about this. I just saw the Jeff Darlington tweet about the Eagles pursuing him. Did you mention that?
Yeah, Corporate Pumper had asked about the Eagles. Like there was no real reports. It seemed like beforehand.
Yeah,
there was just that reply tweet from Jeff Darlington about it. But then now it's like multiple people saying that the Eagles had him eye on their list, which I believe.
Right.
And it seems like most people thought that. So I know there wasn't any official interview reports or anything like that. And I see I'm trying to keep track of the stream too. It seems like my camera quality is still not great, but hopefully my audio is good. I don't know what's going on. Maybe the weather over here is messing things up. But so I apologize for the poor quality, but hopefully the audio is still all right.
We can still hear you perfectly fine, at least from the chat. Everybody was saying the same thing. But yeah, and again, there's the official like putting it on the screen for what Anthony was mentioning from Jeff Darlington. The Bucs and the Eagles obviously both pursuing Mike McDaniel pretty heavily as their offensive coordinator target, which is probably why, as we mentioned earlier, I'm sure you also brought it up, but the Eagles from Darlington saying the Eagles would interview him, that he would get an interview with Philly, but just made up his mind, want to be in Los Angeles coaching Justin Herbert instead of Jalen Hurts in this offense, which is, that's fine. Take your choice there. That's the decision that he made. Still other candidates out there. Still reasons for optimism. Casey with a 5. Bills will complain that they don't have wide receivers, but then those same people will downplay Jalen Hurts, saying that he has good receivers.
Yeah, you can't. That's
double standard.
That's basically the media today, right? It's just like they're always going to move the goalposts. They're going to use one argument to support one guy, and then use a different argument that contradicts that other argument to bring another person down. It's so weird, right? Like just pick a side and stay on that side, right? Like as John Morant said when he came to the tunnel that time, he's like, no, y'all stay on that side. Y'all, like, too many people, especially like front-facing figures and ESPN and Fox Sports, whatever, they flip-flop, right? It's like one day they love Jalen Hurts, the next day they hate Jalen Hurts. One day they praise Josh Allen, and then when he doesn't do great, they don't talk about him at all. It's like, what happened to Sean McDermott? It's so odd, right? So just try to read through everything yourself and kind of form your own opinion is what I would say best.
Yeah, for sure. Because it depends on who you're listening to. Like you're talking about. You can go to one source or one page or channel or whatever, and you could get some bit of info, and they'd be like, oh, well, yeah, it's all because Josh has to do everything by himself. And then you go to a different one, and it's like, yeah, but you got all these superstars and weapons and everything else. And it's like there can be bits and pieces that are true on both sides, but ultimately, at some point, like 0-7 in overtime for Josh Allen. I know you could say, sure, does he have the same type of weapons? No, not necessarily, but 0-7 in overtime games. He's possessed the ball in 6 of those. You got to show up. You make a throw to Dawson Knox in the divisional round, and it's a different story. That's probably
So
a walk-off touchdown, or I guess Denver would have had the ball, but like that's probably game right there. But he missed it, so it's never one play, but it's a lot on Josh Allen, the way that he played. I think that's why he was so emotional after the game. He realizes the opportunity that they had, and he was not able to deliver. He had too many turnovers. A Fazeer, I believe, I did miss this one from earlier with a 10 bomb. Appreciate that. Says, is it possible for Howie and AJ to tear up his old contract and write a new one that has less cap hit but maintains AJ's money?
Yeah, it's
like an extension of sorts, I guess, because you're not just shredding the contract, but in a way, if they were to extend him and offer something else, but they did that recently, right? Like that's almost like a double or triple down. You to answer the question like very succinctly, yes, that's kind of possible, but in the way that you have to do it with the extension, that becomes the problem. Like you're pushing so much off to the back end to try to free up some other space. Oh, we'll just give him another signing bonus and push the further dead cap. Eventually, you're going to have to eat that. And I don't know that because like you're agreeing with, and obviously we can talk through this, but like they have done it already. You're doubling up those efforts, and I don't think it makes any sense in the world to be, oh, hey, let's go ahead and do that again.
Yeah, because the reason they're basically in the situation that they're in right now, as far as the dead cap goes, is because they've already kind of backloaded the contract so much to limit those cap hits all along, right? Which is Jimmy Kempski put out a great article of the Philly Voice where he talked about how the Eagles only took, it was like his salary cap hit was like 8 million, 11 million, right? Even though actual money, he was probably getting like 20 something million, or he got like huge signing bonus, whatever. But the way they were able to structure the deal is why now, if they were to trade him or whatever, you're taking a $43 million cap hit like this year, or if you wait after June 1st, you could spread it out over 2 years. So like redoing his contract now once again, or signing him to another extension, that would only just make those hits even bigger down the line. Maybe it would save them a little bit now, but they, like you mentioned, they already did that once before. So I can't see them doing it. It honestly seems like they've come to the point now where it's like, are we going to trade him? Which I know people don't want to see, but I've said that I think it's a very real possibility. Like even in the middle of the season, I feel like we both said it was in the offseason. That was something that they were definitely going to revisit. And if you don't trade him now, it's like, what happens then, right? Because then you start taking those bigger cap hits, and you're pretty much locking yourself in, because if he has another kind of disappointing up and down year, his value is just going to be even worse. So it doesn't feel like just eat the cap hit now, but you'll get a first or second round pick, like the Seahawks were able to get for DK Metcalf or whoever it was that had him before the Seahawks. I lose track of what team he was on, but he because they kind of made that decision, same draft class, right? Like similar kind of player. I think AJ Brown is better, but DK Metcalf also needed a new contract, right? The team that's trading for AJ Brown now, you don't have to give him a new contract. You can just, and you're going to be taking on significantly less money than the Eagles would be paying, because they're going to be taking a bunch of that dead cap hit, right? So that makes it a little bit more attractive. You can kind of say like, oh, this past year he just wasn't fully invested. He was like Kevin Patullo. It wasn't a good offense. You can kind of sell yourself on like AJ Brown's outlier of a season, and you could, like the Bills or the Patriots can be like, oh yeah, we'll trade you a first or second round pick because we're confident that we can get the best out of him where we are. So I feel like it's either now or never. You have to decide if they're going to trade AJ Brown at like what should be his like best value, or just try and figure things out and hope the new OC can kind of fix things. I'm going to back out one more time and try to figure out this connection. I'm sorry, but it's really bothering me. So I'm going to try to figure it out. If it doesn't work after that, I'm sorry, everybody.
All good. Sir Himothy, again, Anthony went through these. He was not able to put them up on the screen, but I'll put this one up here as well. But he did say that he went through and got each of the super chats. But I'll, like I say, throw this up here as well. Huge mistake not firing Nick, Joe Brady or bust. I'm a fan of The Joe Brady move, they do need to make that. Personally, that's what I would say. Todd Monken was at the top of the list. It seems like he's not going to be available, although he's getting interviews for head coaching jobs. And I think that's like John Harbaugh's top choice if Monken does not get a head coaching job. But he's still in the running for a couple of those. So if he gets the head coaching job, then Harbaugh's going elsewhere. But it doesn't feel like the Eagles have necessarily a shot at OC. And maybe he's told teams that, possibly. I mean, you don't see too many other interviews other than the head coaching jobs. So maybe that's a, hey, look, he's interviewing, cool. But if not, his fallback is the OC job for the Giants. But once that happened, then, Mike McDaniel was up there. He's obviously gone because of the latest news for the Chargers where he's going. And then you look at Joe Brady, Brian Daboll. Like those are the top couple ones. Andrew, appreciate that. Yes, I think Anthony knows that he sounds fine. He just doesn't look the greatest because it was blurry. So nothing specifically for him, just his connection there. But we'll try it one more time, see if this actually works. And there we go. Let's see if this it's starting out good, but
it's been starting out good, and then it's just becomes a mess. Sorry, this has never happened before. I don't know what's going on.
We will see. John with a 5. So what big swing for offensive coordinator is left? Go Birds. John, I think it's Daboll classify for a big swing. OC, Joe Brady. I don't know. It feels like those two are kind of at the top of it. Like if you get one of those two, you would still probably classify it as a big swing. I know that some people are not a fan of Daboll. I know that you've gone through reasons that there's more optimism possibly than some people are giving him credit for. But Daboll or Joe Brady, I still think would qualify as the big swing. If you don't get one of those, they could spin it for sure. And it could work out. It could be perfectly fine. Again, we've always said this, like, look, it's going to be optimistic because it's not Kevin Patullo. It will be better, but it's not hard to be better, but it will be better. But just in the terms of the big swing, I think it's maybe those two names. The Eagles, though, I mean, they could, like, they go with a Charlie Weiss Jr. or a Nate Scheelhaase or, like, you could frame it up as a big swing, like in the terms of a big gamble. But I don't know. They obviously tried. They were interested in McDaniel. It just didn't happen there.
Yeah, it seems like right now the bigger names as far as like the proven guys would probably be like a Brian Daboll, who we've already said some people seem to be like mixed reviews on, right? Cliff Kingsbury, who also seems like the people aren't too thrilled either way with him.
That's true. That's another one.
You think he's going to be all right? Like you think but it seems like he hasn't had many interviews or anything like that too. So kind of an odd situation, especially given the fact that the Commanders let go of him, but then just replace them in-house. Very, very odd situation with him. And then Joe Brady, like you mentioned, if he doesn't land the head coaching job, but he would probably be at the top. I feel like as far as what Eagles fans want, it seems like he's probably the next guy in line. Mm-hmm. But then we've talked about this like a couple weeks ago. I don't know if it was on the show or privately, but I had tweeted about Joe Brady, I believe. And then I tweeted about how Jalen Carter called out the Bills play on the mic'd up. And then Bills fans were all in the replies. They found the tweet, and we discovered how much Bills fans apparently hated Joe Brady, and they think he only calls like 4 plays, and his situational play calling is so. It's so funny, right? Because the way Eagles fans viewed Kevin Patullo, it almost seems like Bills fans, or some of them, viewed Joe Brady the same way, where it was just like a redundant offense, didn't get the most out of people. Meanwhile, we look from the outside over here, and we're like, Josh Allen's killing it. They got the best rushing offense in the NFL. It's like, we would love to have that guy. So it's almost like the grass ain't always greener kind of thing. But it is Mike McDaniel seemed like the big fish, right? And Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie do like to get the big fish. They like making that splash move when they can. But it almost seemed like from the beginning, because he wasn't one of their initial interviews, that they were planning the other avenues and routes that they were going to go down.
Yeah, try to do the backup plan, or at least something they're recognizing is going to take a bigger pull, get lucky of sorts, or maybe some other jobs that fall through. And unfortunately, like you saw on the screen a second ago, but McDaniel wants warm weather states, as he's shown at some point. You look at the offense, right? Like the offense that McDaniel's had and the success they've had in warm weather versus when they go anywhere to play in the cold. Now, some of it you could say, well, it's those teams not being familiar or comfortable. They could have success, and maybe so. They could, possibly a team with Mike McDaniel could have success in colder weather environments. But the trickery that he does and how he likes to utilize the offensive play calling, I don't blame him necessarily to say, hey, I want to play in a dome half of my games. I want to play in warm weather half of my games, because offensively, and we've seen this, we went to, I mean, how many games were, especially this season, how many games were 35-mile-per-hour wind and probably a little bit of rain or snow or something else involved? Like, it does affect things in terms of play calling and offense. So, yeah, I mean, for him, this is a resume builder. This is a one-year job. Like, he's not, oh, I'm going to the Chargers long term. This is 1 year audition to then parlay that to a better head coaching job. The ones that were remaining, the ones that were available, and that were interested in him, because, you do wonder if there were other jobs that would he have considered. But I think that he looked at the ones that were still interested in terms of head coaching jobs, and it wasn't appealing to him enough. So he's like, all right, fine. You know what? I'll not reinvent myself, but just kind of add to the stock. You go for 1 year. If you have a good offense and you help kind of turn things around as far as the Chargers go, then yeah, you absolutely will be one of the top candidates, because people go, oh, look at that. There's obviously proven offense, but we just got to get him a defense. You got to get a little bit better, somebody who can help with the defense, and you got a legit contender. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. I understand, like, even the comments of, like, as you said, to Joe Brady, and the grass is always greener, depending on if he's your OC or whoever is, and you move on from somebody, he's like, oh, thank goodness we got rid of him. Yeah, it's a matter of perspective. There's some that are blatantly obvious, and then there's others that are like, yeah, but, like, are we really complaining about that? Because, again, you got the number one rushing offense. Like, it doesn't just happen by sheer luck. You can have some really good players, but you still have to know what you're doing somewhat to be able to have the number one rushing offense in the NFL. And the fact that they did that, I mean, I remember whenever Kellen Moore was hired, whenever he was hired, you had a lot of Cowboys fans, but even Chargers ones are like, oh, good luck. Like, just wait till you experience what we did. And then we go and win a Super Bowl. So it is a constant. Grass is always greener. The just recycling of offensive coordinators that happens in the league. But if they've shown that they can do it at a certain level, especially the sequencing part of the play calling, because there's a lot of other facets, but the sequencing to me is where, yeah, maybe there's some fine tuning, maybe there's some things that they need to adjust, but if they can more often than not sequence in a positive light, then it basically at that point comes down to the execution. And we saw 2 years ago when we won the Super Bowl of the difference of that. When the players were executing and you had the sequencing like Kellen Moore, what happened? You win the Super Bowl. When you don't have that and the players are struggling in issues, then, we saw what it was this year. So, Christopher with the 5, we're hiring one of these low-level guys for offensive coordinator. Daboll will go to the Bills, in my opinion. The offense will most likely be what it was this season, but thank God Vic's still here. It's a little negative for me. A little too much. I don't believe it's going to be what it was this year. This year was like 25th in almost every worthwhile category offensively.
Yeah, it seems like I don't know. I think Daboll going to Buffalo seemed like a very real possibility, but I also saw, I don't know if you've seen this too, but I think Davis Webb is like the Broncos passing game coordinator, whatever. He's apparently like being linked to the Bills too. So that's another. I feel like if you're gonna fire a Sean McDermott, I don't think you would hire a retread, right? I feel like that seems like a spot where you would want to take a chance on this young offensive mind, like to really maximize Josh Allen. And it seems like Davis Webb would fill that role. I don't think running it back with Brian Daboll would do much for them, because in that case, I feel like why not just keep Joe Brady, right? Unless Josh Allen said he likes Brian Daboll over Joe Brady. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose.
Feels like they need somebody new there, especially if they're going to keep like Bean as the GM or give him the promotion or whatever nonsense that was. But that's a whole different other story. But I just think, speaking of Brian Daboll, real quick, because you weren't here when I threw these stats out, and probably half of these people weren't here either. Early in his career, he got a lot of flack. I feel like this is right when you had to leave, unfortunately. But like I said, I hope everything's good. But early in his career, he's kind of been able to maximize all the talent when he was an OC. If you look at Jerome Harrison in 2009, he had a career high 862 rushing yards when Brian Daboll was his OC. Peyton Hillis, in his 7-year career, I tweeted it out, only had one season when he had over 600 rushing yards, and he just so happened to have almost 1,200 rushing yards with Brian Daboll as his OC. Reggie Bush, who many view as kind of like a failed draft pick, right? His career high in rushing, 2011, 1,086 rushing yards. Brian Daboll was his OC. And then Jamal Charles, who was a very accomplished running back, has put up some crazy numbers. I remember I had him on my fantasy football teams back in 2012, 2013, 2014. His career high in rushing yards was 1,509 rushing yards with Brian Daboll as his OC in 2012. And then even Josh Allen, who everybody thinks he's the best, he won MVP, everything under Joe Brady. How about career high in passing yards, passing touchdowns, and rushing yards was under Brian Daboll. And Stephon Diggs, another great wide receiver. He was great in Minnesota, great in Buffalo, great in New England. His single season career high in receptions and receiving yards came under Brian Daboll. So I know he gets a lot of flack for the overall statistics of those offenses, but as far as when he has really good talent, can he maximize that talent? He's pretty much been able to do that in every stop that he's been in.
And it'd be better than Kevin Patullo. I understand it because you see some people are like, yeah, but what has he done lately? And you were bringing this up as far as like, yeah, but what talent?
Oh, what has he done lately?
For the most part, right? Like,
sorry to cut you off. Jackson Dart, rookie quarterback, was on pace for 40 total touchdowns as a rookie. So, I mean, what has he done for me lately?
But then
you could talk about everything else.
Like, yeah, but he wasn't going to do that because he ended up getting fired, right? So, like, but I understand, but
his numbers were drastically better. Sorry, I'm going on a Brian Daboll.
They were. Right? I mean, it's true.
His numbers were drastically better, and his pace was drastically better before Brian Daboll got fired until after. So you can argue how, what, and he's throwing to Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton, Theo Johnson,
and to be able to make
it's a little bit different than like come on, what are we doing here?
I hear you. It's been like if he does have those weapons, then there's an opportunity there. It'll be better than Kevin Patullo. Now Kilo says with a 2, Daboll is going to Buffalo again. Similar thought there, and Brady's getting the head coaching job. I assume for Buffalo. I don't see that one happening either. I really doubt that it's they're trying to like if Joe Brady's getting the head coaching job. I don't think that's happening, but if he is, because they fired McDermott and they're like, oh, we want to hold on to Brady, then they're going to bring in like a Davis Webb, and honestly, he's not calling plays. Joe Brady will call plays. Like the reason that they would potentially, if they were going to do it, would be to keep Joe Brady so that he can be a play caller. Like you're afraid of losing an offensive coordinator, of someone who's going to be over this offense, so you keep him by making the head coach, but then you don't go get a guy like Brian Daboll to be like, hey, and he wouldn't even sign up for that. Like, let's be honest. He wouldn't go, yeah, let me be the offensive coordinator and not even call plays, to just be here and help kind of design the scheme and have a little bit of input. But yeah, Joe, you go ahead, and that's not happening. He's not taking a job where he does the very least that he will accept is an offensive coordinator role where he has complete control over calling the plays, scheming it up, and being as close as he possibly can, I'm sure, to a head coaching position. But it wouldn't surprise me if there's other moves around there. And yeah, I don't doubt that Buffalo's interested. I just don't think that it's the Joe Brady, Brian Daboll connection there. Poncho with a 5. Not gonna lie, I think it was less about Hurts and the Eagles and more about the weather for McDaniel. Maybe we talked about that a second ago. Just the offenses and what that does. Anthony with a 5 also. I think a similar statement here. I think Mike Mike likes the warm weather. Can't wear capris up here after October. Still sucks we never even got an interview on to the next.
Yeah, it is interesting though, right? Because even before he went with LA, there was a report that came out. I forget who it was from. Maybe it was Jeff Darlington, or it seems like he's pretty plugged in with Mike McDaniel, but that he was going to be leaning towards Tampa Bay if nothing else kind of popped up. So clearly it seemed like he did prefer the warm weather. Now he's going to the Chargers where, at least like 9 games a season between their 8 home games or potentially 9 home games. And then they play a game every year on the road against Las Vegas, which is also a dome, right? So pretty good setup for him as far as what he likes to operate in, whether it's the weather or just the conditions on the field. I think, and I mean, I know we're biased because we think the Eagles are talented and one of the most talented offenses in the NFL. But if you're going to have a fully healthy Justin Herbert with Omari and Hampton in the backfield, Ladd McConkey at receiver, if Keenan Allen returns, you have Gadsden at tight end, you have Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, hopefully both healthy for next season as well. Like that's a pretty damn good setup to go into for potentially just 1 year, right? And in those conditions, like we mentioned, as far as like being in a dome. So I can't really fault him for going with LA either.
Yeah, and there's lots of potential. People have taken that job. It's why Kellen Moore went to go and coach Justin Herbert, because quarterback Jesus is there's incentives there. People want to go and coach him, They might make the playoffs, but then I don't know what Justin's going to do after that. He just doesn't.
Apparently that doesn't matter.
Shown up. It does.
As long as you throw for 5,000 yards
but here's
in
the thing.
Regular season, you're a great quarterback.
But again, that's what it comes down to. We talk about this. McDaniel, it's a 1-year job. I can we can 100% say that. You're crazy if you don't think this is a one-year gamble on himself. He's literally going there to rack up fantasy stats. And yeah, he's trying to win the Super Bowl, obviously. But like, if they get to the playoffs and it's a one and done again for the Chargers, he's out of there. He is so gone. He could have 5,000 yards for Justin Herbert, like you said. He could have 50 touchdowns passing. They could be an electrifying offense. He is gone after one season. He would be like, "Thank you. I have parlayed this into my next head coaching job, and I will, go where I please, basically." But yeah, it'd be a one-year thing. Corporate with the 5, my number 1 offensive coordinator candidate is Nate Scheelhaase, former quarterback, coached running backs, wide receivers, connection to Matt Campbell. He's the real guy, just can't interview yet. We've brought him up on a couple different streams and videos also. It's a gamble, but you got him from the McVay coaching tree. Great point. Obviously, we've shared this with Matt Campbell connection, Nick Sirianni. So I'm sure that Sirianni has a good bit of info if he wanted it at all. He could very easily access that from Matt Campbell. But the connection there in itself, I don't know. It's one of those gambles. It's not necessarily the big swing name wise. It would be a big gamble, like we were saying a second ago. It could be a great hit. He's drawing up plays, but we've seen other instances, and that's where I think the PTSD for me and a lot of people comes into it of like, yeah, but don't we want someone who's like a pretty established play caller and a pretty established in terms of sequencing? Because it's cool if you can design really fun, creative plays, but do we know for sure that he could actually take over the sequencing of the play calling, which is obviously the biggest issue for us all season long?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, right? It's like he didn't call plays in college, I don't believe. If he did, it wasn't like a full-time thing. Maybe he called a couple situational things here and there, but he was not the full-time play caller in college when he was the OC. Obviously in LA, he hasn't been that either. So, but the Eagles do know about him because they interviewed him, I believe, in 2023 or 2024. So they knew about him before he even came into the NFL because of that connection that Nick Sirianni has with Matt Campbell. So they'll probably know him better than maybe any team besides the Rams, right? So I wouldn't be too worried as far as getting an interview with him. They pretty much know they got a head start on him, like I mentioned. But it just comes down to after the season that they're coming off of, right, where you saw a guy that never called plays before, and like it seemed like the offense didn't really fully trust him. Even just that last play huddle on the sideline with Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, like Kevin Patullo, that just sticks in my head. Where it's just like it didn't seem like any of those three knew what they were doing, like knew what the plan was. Nobody stepped up and was like, listen, and that's on all three of them, not just Kevin Patullo, but like nobody was like, listen, we're going to do this. This is what we do. We got our call right here. Like there was absolutely no confidence. And that's the play that defined your season, right? So I feel like they need, I said this before, I'm like phrased it this way before, they need like an adult in the room. They have a lot of established veterans, a lot of accomplished guys. They need somebody that these guys are going to respect. And I don't know if bringing in a 35-year-old that has never called plays before is necessarily the right direction to go, right? Like, do you want that guy stepping up on the stage in the auditorium at NovaCare Complex and be like, listen, guys, listen to me. Like, I know what I'm doing. I feel like if you're bringing a guy that has 10 plus years of experience in the NFL and has called plays for some of the most talented quarterbacks out there or whatever, whether it's a Cliff Kingsbury or Brian Daboll, like you need somebody that's done it before to really get the attention of this room and turn this offense around and heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. Sammy said I'd take any one and done coach for a Super Bowl. And we all would.
100%.
So would Howie. He said that. He literally said that. He's like, look, if that's our problem, then we'll deal with it. But it'd be great to have longevity. But if it does lead into another one for this season, if it's a Brian Daboll, if it's a Joe Brady, whoever it is, and then you lose them, but we're having a parade next year in February, yes. I'd be shocked if there was anybody else that's out there like, no, I don't want that. No, just give me a long-term OC to maybe, because we could, sure, like maybe you turn into the dynasty of sorts, right? Where it's like, okay, there's more of a perennial, and there's more of a likelihood for that. I understand that because the turnover is not a longevity, but if it does, it's a big gamble there. But they just saw it happen with Kellen Moore, and I think that's why Howie said, look, we're in the win mode now, or the win now mode, and what Sirianni kind of echoed the same thing. So Steven with a 2, they are going to try and get their yes man for OC. I don't know. I think I'm more in agreement with what Anthony was saying a second ago. I think that they've got the yes man in Sirianni. They want a guy who will stand up to him or just kind of be like, hey, I signed on here. Like we all agreed. I've got control. If I have any issues, I can just go to Howie and Lurie and be like, hey, your guy's like too involved, right? Like keep him in the defensive rooms and everything else there. I do believe that they've recognized this. Jeff McClain was reporting on his latest podcast of it was back during the 2-2 bye week 2 years ago, right? Like on the Super Bowl season, that Sirianni was on the hot seat. There was a very, a kind of a measurable measurable hot seat in terms of Sirianni, and was he potentially in jeopardy of losing his job if it had gone south, and Lurie, where his stance was, and growing a little bit of impatience. Now obviously it worked itself out because we won the Super Bowl, but then following the Super Bowl, yes, we could all say it was absolutely the wrong decision to make, but who else was available at that point? They let Sirianni have more of a say in who the offensive coordinator would be because they just won the Super Bowl, and whatever he pitched them or wherever they were at, whoever made the ultimate, like, okay, fine, we'll go with this. They agreed to it. And yeah, we saw how it played out. Kevin Patullo could not call plays, but they're course correcting, and they typically do that very quickly. So this season, they're going right back to it. They have success typically when they bring in external guys. And I would have to imagine, like, again, Anthony, you were saying there, the adult in the room, somebody who can stand up to Sirianni, or just is so far removed where it's like, nope, this is the system we're running. This is the offense. And Sirianni can be the rah-rah leader in the locker room.
Yeah, another part of that too, where, like, as far as bringing in an experienced OC, is I think there's a good chance we still don't know contractually like which position coaches are like heading into a contract year, or this was their contract year. So I think bringing in a guy that has called plays or even been a head coach elsewhere could help too, because that'll bring in, like, hey, I know Aaron Moorhead hasn't really done the best at wide receiver coach. I got a guy that I was working with or whatever, or
Yeah.
I got a tight end coach. I know Jason Michael hasn't, like, Grant Calcaterra didn't improve as a blocker. Like, the blocking as far as a whole from tight ends wasn't great. Like, I've got a guy to bring. Like, they might need something like that too, where they want to expand like their network and bring in these other position coaches too. And it's time to have some turnover there. So if you bring in a guy that's, whether it's a Charlie Weiss Jr. coming from college, like, he doesn't really have those connections to bring in guys that, I mean, maybe, I guess some guy from college or whatever, but they went through that in 2023 where they brought in a bunch of college coaches that turned NFL coaches, and we saw how that worked out. It was later in the process, unfortunately, but that didn't go as planned. So I think, like I said, they want somebody that has a ton of experience, that can command the room, kind of tell the players what they're going to do, and not just be walked all over like the yes man that Kevin Patullo might have been last year. And I think they've kind of spoken out like that too. They're not saying that they need somebody that's going to give the offense to Nick Sirianni. They pretty much said, like, listen, if they want control, like, it's going to be there for them to take. It's just a matter of who comes in and what's going to happen from there. So
Yeah.
I don't think they want another yes man. I think they actually want quite the opposite.
100%. Anthony with the 2. I think if Nick was fired, McDaniel would be here. Yeah, I think so. I mean, why wouldn't you? With the Eagles' job, like, who's not going to sign up for a head coaching position? He's obviously not. They weren't going that direction. But you could say that for, I mean, literally, I think just about any candidate that's still out there. If, like, oh, hey, Eagles head coaching job is available, yes. I mean, there's not a question. You want the OC position with a charge? I don't forget warm weather. What, like, yes. You want one of the best organizations to be the head coach of? Absolutely. I don't think anybody's turning that one down. Poncho with a 2. Do you think Sirianni is a potential OC? Sorry, do you think Sirianni is red flag? I'm sorry, red flag for potential offensive coordinator candidates. I mean, maybe, but the reports have been, and I think this is where the Lurie and Howie are trying to really make this distinguishable. Like, Sirianni is not going to be involved. He's not going to have a whole lot of say. They tried to do that with Kellen Moore, but I think they also understand, like, look, if you're bringing someone in, it needs to be blatantly different, as we continue to say here. So I don't, I mean, maybe for some where it's like a question before an interview process, but I really believe that at some point, if they're interested in the job enough, and again, it's Philly, it's the organization, it comes with everything that it comes with. But if you want to land a head coaching job, you can see the success that if you come into the building and you know what you're doing, you can parlay that into a head coaching job. Like, all the guys have done it. All the external candidates have come in and had success, have been able to use it that way. So I think it's, I don't know. I don't know that it's as big of a red flag that maybe some people necessarily make it out to be.
Yeah, I think the biggest red flags now for, like, potential OCs might actually be 2, like, player questions, where it's like, is AJ Brown going to be here in Philadelphia next season? And is Lane Johnson going to be here in Philadelphia next season? Right? I feel like those are the 2 biggest questions. Like, before you have to figure out if Nick Sirianni is going to be meddling in the play calling or things like that, it's like, are 2 of your best players on offense going to be here, or do they plan on moving on, whether it's a trade for AJ Brown or Lane Johnson retiring, right? So once those situations might be the first questions that these guys ask when they get these interviews with the Eagles.
Yep. Lots of, and maybe why it's take a little bit longer for the interview process because they are doing their due diligence, but lots of questions of how people would fix things and maybe who's on the roster. And I've got to imagine, like you're saying there, like, asking Howie, perhaps, what are the personnel potential decisions? Who are we looking at ideally? What do they envision in terms of the offense and who they would have? And it's probably flipped on them as well. Like, okay, if you were the offensive coordinator, who would you want? Could you make do with certain players or not? And, how you would fix it. So lots of things to discuss. Tenoshi with the super chat here. Appreciate that. Says, it seems like Daboll would be the Eagles' head office first choice at this point, but any of the aforementioned candidates, including Zack Robinson, would be a huge upgrade over KP. And yes, any of the aforementioned, any of Anthony's 21 candidates. I know that not all of them are still available, but still, you go to check it out on the phillyspecialshow.com, and Anthony's 21 candidates, anybody that's available, yeah, they would certainly be better than Kevin Patullo. Frankie with a 5, with all these head coaching and offensive coordinator positions, I think is less likely that we get our guy. Maybe you're battling it out. There's some competition, obviously, but I don't know. To me, it's still, and again, we are biased, so like what everybody understands and knows. But Anthony, you just mentioned this a second ago. Yes, we're biased, but it's a team that you're going to be in the primetime spotlight. Like, if you are a good offensive coordinator, I'll keep going back to this, but like, I think Pat McAfee said this in like last week or whatever. He's like, what was it? The bad coaches or whatever. I'm gonna butcher it, but he said it great. It was like the great coaches kick ass and the bad coaches cover their ass or something like that. It's basically like, they're just making excuses. And it's true because, like, if you're good, who cares about, like, oh, well, are they doing this enough? Are they not? If you believe in yourself, then Philly is going to be the job for you to be able to go to the next level. You're going to have that type of notoriety. And everyone in the league knows the benefits of being in Philly and also the disadvantages. You understand, if you can survive in Philadelphia as an offensive coordinator and make it through that and have some success, yeah, that earns you a whole lot of respect around the league because they go, man, you had to put up with a lot, right? Like you got to deal with the media that's not the friendliest at times. You got to deal with, obviously, the passion of the fans, tons of pressure because it's a successful organization. You can't come here and just be mediocre. Mediocrity is not going to get it there. It's not going to get you where you want to. So if you can come in and be successful, then yeah, you got the job on that side. Anthony with a 5. Diana Rossini seemed to intimate that Philly isn't an attractive job because of the head coaching situation. Is he going to keep interfering and breaking that autonomy for offensive coordinator position?
I feel like that's a good, like, an easy narrative to throw out there, right? It's just like the whole Sirianni of it all. Is he going to keep, like, hold people back, or do the coordinators feel like it's not that great of an opening? Like, I don't know. I feel like outside of Mike McDaniel, there wasn't really a guy that, like, were you a Drew Petzing fan? Like, did you think he was one? I don't think any Eagles fans had him in their top
didn't really bother
5 or
too
10.
much.
Like, that wasn't a big one. David Blau wasn't even available, right? So it didn't even seem like many other teams were interested in him either for that. So it's like, unless you really, I know you love Mike McDaniel, but I said from the beginning, and I feel like you kind of said this similar things, was that we didn't think he was necessarily the perfect fit for the Eagles, like, schematically either, right? And it seemed like he viewed it as just like a speed bump where he could just use 1 year and then go to another head coaching job, like you mentioned. So there's going to be all different things thrown out there now, especially after McDaniel went to the Chargers. People will be like, if you look on paper, the Eagles are the more talented team. Like, why is he not picking the Super Bowl MVP over Justin Herbert? Like, there's going to be all these, and Chargers fans, of course, are going to have a field day with it because they already have that conversation in their heads all the time because they don't care about doing anything in the playoffs. But it's just, yeah, we're going to hear a lot of different things now, but hopefully the Eagles will still land one of the bigger name guys that's available.
And I still believe that there's a really good chance. I understand all the reasonings that are getting thrown out there, but there's still a lot of belief, even with it being a Mike McDaniel officially off the board. Because I'm seeing some other comments too from people jumping in late, or hey, McDaniel to the Chargers. I know it is official. The Christopher Mike with a 2. Who do we re-sign in free agency? I'm hoping to keep Phillips. Well, interesting that you should ask. Anthony's got a go or stay list.
Yeah, so if you go over to the phillyspecialshow.com, one of my most recent articles. It should be, I believe, the second one on the website when you go there. I went through all 20 of the Eagles free agents that are going to expected to hit free agency this offseason and predicted whether they will stay or go. You mentioned Jalen Phillips, so I'll just only talk about him. And if you want to see the rest, you can check out the article. But I do think he will stay in Philadelphia, but you might be disappointed by some of my other predictions in that article. But I appreciate if anybody goes and checks it out at thephillyspecialshow.com. And tomorrow, for anybody else, while we're on the topic of the website, I'll be posting my first Eagles 7-round mock draft. So that's already finished and will be published tomorrow.
We're getting into draft season. It
Yes.
is upon us. We're 11 days from the Senior Bowl, so Clint Hurt is going to be the head coach of the national team. Is that right?
Yeah, national team, and then Jamal Singleton will be his OC.
There you go.
And then Cole Peterson and another, I forget the woman's name, is going to be on the staff as well, all from the Eagles. So
there we go.
That'll give them a little bit of a leg up as far as up close and personal with these Senior Bowl players.
We will take the extra access, and lots more that we'll get into as well, as far as just the free agency. I know questions of who they're going to keep, who they're not going to, but still plenty of time. We got other areas to get to first, obviously offensive coordinator position, before you begin a lot of that. Damon with a 5, appreciate that, says, I still say if we would have fired both of them, we would have had the pick of the litter of coaches. I mean, probably, but as little as we see or might think that Nick Sirianni does, he does enough inside the locker room and has the buy-in from the team and the players that it means enough to not just completely abandon ship and say, wow, we're totally just scrapping this thing. Because I think the message that it sends across the organization, but certainly within the locker room, is just a total lack of belief. And I understand it. Anthony gets it. Like, we all get it from the, again, outside looking in, is the offenses continue to be inconsistent. Sirianni cannot call those plays, but he's even kind of admitted or alluded to in the past, like, he's at his best when he's actually not having to get into the weeds of the offense. Like, I think he's come to terms, or slowly getting there, at least better than he was, that he doesn't need to be involved as much with the X's and O's and as far as the sequencing and play calling. So if there's that, maybe the being told, voluntold of Lurie and Howie as well, it all plays a factor, but they just weren't going to make that move yet. It was probably, I imagine, a similar ultimatum, like, hey, Nick, we need you to fire KP. We're going in our direction now, but if you do that, we still have enough belief and faith because you get the players to buy in, or whatever that chemistry is, and it's enough to keep him around.
Yeah, I also don't think that, like, do you really love John Harbaugh that much? Like, who's considered like the crown jewel of this hiring cycle, right? Where he is another coach that doesn't call plays on either side of the ball. He's actually like a special teams guy. And if you look at the Ravens since 2012 or whatever it was when they won the Super Bowl, I think they had 4 playoff wins in the last 13 seasons or something like that. And there were some pretty damn good teams that had high expectations. So Nick Sirianni has 6 playoff wins since 2021. And you can argue he doesn't have the same talented roster. But like I said, he had a multiple-time MVP in Lamar Jackson. They've had plenty of seasons where they were expected to win 12-plus games, go deep in the playoffs, and it just hasn't happened. And everybody makes the excuse of, like, oh, he had to go against Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and all these. Like, but that's the NFL. Like, you're eventually going to have to play the good teams and get it done.
Yeah, you got to beat them.
I think that it's so easy to say, like, oh, this guy plugged into Philadelphia would do this. But that's not how it works at the end of the day. And it's hard to dispute, no matter how much we might hate how he talks in press conferences or his lack of involvement or what does he do on offense and defense. Like, the team has done a lot better than most of the other teams in the NFL since Nick Sirianni has arrived in Philadelphia.
That they have. There's at least not an argument for whatever he does, and we may never fully know that. But the team in itself buys in, and every time that you ask players, they stick up for him. They want him around. So it's at least meaning something. And I say this too, like, as far as the Harbaugh signing, the only reason that was a good signing, or the biggest reason that that's a good signing for me, is that, like, Todd Monken likely goes with him. So again, it goes down to, like, who's calling the plays, who has the offense. It's not Harbaugh, but the connections there ultimately probably get you a Todd Monken. I think it's Nico with the 2. We need AJ drops, don't matter, not warm. Who can we re-sign? Not exactly sure what that means. We need AJ drops, don't matter, not warm. who can we sign? I think that means that they're suggesting we need to drop AJ. Like, doesn't matter, whatever. I guess. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to fully compute. Maybe I'm missing it. But who can we sign? There's not a lot of wide receiver options in this free agency period at the moment, or at least coming up. You look at contracts that we've, I think, discussed previously. If you're moving on from AJ, though, you're trading him. So is that a possibility of getting draft capital in this year? And do you go and select a receiver? Maybe. I don't know. And again, I hope I'm understanding where this super chat's coming from, but a little difficult there.
Yeah, that would definitely be a draft play, right? Because like you said, they would probably be getting a draft pick for him. But even then, Howie Roseman alluded to at his last press conference saying that, like, basically saying, like, our offense has been really expensive in recent years. Our defense has been cheap. But now it's coming time where we're going to have to pay a lot of these defensive guys. So he didn't say it outright, but he kind of alluded to the fact that they're going to have to get a little bit cheaper on offense. So whether that's tight end and then moving on from Dallas Goedert, or an A.J. Brown trade where they're going to eat the dead cap, but then they'll have a first round or second round pick at wide receiver that's only making a couple million a year. Like, it seemed like that would be the direction they would go. They wouldn't trade A.J. Brown just to pay a different receiver a ton of money, right? Like, if you're trading A.J. Brown, it's because you want to go younger and cheaper at that spot.
Yep, 100%. Shout out Loki, member for 22 months. Let's go. Appreciate that. 22 months for the member. Turned 41. Busy life. Missed the streams. Go Birds. Go Birds. Birthday. And happy birthday. Turned 41. Let's go. Well, I appreciate that. And 22 months. That's big time. Tone with the 2. Red Daboll had the lowest pre-snap movement, motivation movement in the NFL. He was very low in that category. But
yeah, that's
I
don't know. To me, it's like,
what it is.
For some reason, I think it's because the Eagles don't do it a ton, that we see these other teams, especially the Dolphins and like the Rams and things like that. They do all these interesting motions, but like, you don't have to use motion to have a good offense, right? It's not like hand in hand, because Zack Robinson and the Falcons, I believe they led the NFL in motion rate, or were very close to the top.
Yeah.
And that wasn't like a lights out offense. They were, outside of Bijan Robinson, they were a pretty bad offense, actually. So it's like, motion does not equal success on offense. And I know you don't want the bottom of the barrel, but like, they brought in Kellen Moore, went up a little bit, and it was enough to win a Super Bowl. So I don't think you need a drastic philosophical change as far as the motion rate goes and things like that.
Yeah, it did barely bump it up, but you're right. It's not maybe not the end all be all. And it wouldn't be Kevin Patullo. You'd have some experience of play caller and sequencing, which we can just continue to harp on to death. But that is the positive. You've got a guy who at least understands that part of the play calling. I shot with a 5. Do you guys really believe if we get an established offensive coordinator, he would have full autonomy when it comes to play calling?
Yes,
I do. Yes, I think that they've seen enough.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's like after that Kevin Patullo experience. I mean, with Kellen Moore, it seemed like he had, for the most part, like, it wasn't totally his offense, but I think for the most part, he was the one making those final calls and calling in the play to Jalen Hurts. But I think even more so now, I think it would just be like, especially depending on who they bring in, if it is a Cliff Kingsbury, Brian Daboll, like one of these top guys that's left, it's going to be like, here, like, you run the show, and Nick Sirianni will figure out when to challenge plays, when to go for it on 4th down, and things like that. But outside of that, I feel like they would be like, it's your offense. Like, you, especially if Joe Brady too, like, you do you, and we're going to let you figure it all out.
Game management for sure. And if it's Joe Brady, then he would be up in the booth. So, it's probably
Brian Daboll. Right? Another thing, I think I said this before, but during his time in Buffalo, Brian Daboll was in the booth at times when he was the OC. So it's not necessarily him and Sirianni going to be fist fighting every game on the sidelines, like some people are worried about. I think that would be just fine.
No, we're calling a run play here. No, we're calling hitches. I promise you, it'll work this time. A couple more super chats here before I gotta wrap personally, and I know it's late for you on the East Coast as well. But no handles with the 5. What do y'all think about David Shaw as a candidate? Has tons of experience in college and NFL. Feel like his temperament matches Jalen's well. Yeah,
I mean, he's with the Lions, I believe, and then their pass game coordinator or something like that. I forget his exact title, but hasn't been in the NFL a ton recently. I think this is his first year back in quite a while. I know he was at Stanford right back in the day, something like that. So it doesn't seem like he's generating a ton of buzz, and it feels like if the Lions were high on him, why wouldn't they just promote him instead of hiring Drew Petzing? But maybe they like him in like that senior role or whatever. I don't know if he wants to run an offense and be an offense coordinator. He might be fine, just content like in a senior kind of advisory role and not necessarily having to lead every meeting and install an offense and things like that. So it also comes
True.
down
Yeah,
sometimes to what a coach wants, especially at that point in his career.
that's fair. Darth Bandit with a 5 per Eagles. Eric, he said Daboll needs to adjust his second down play calling if Philly hires him. Yes, I actually covered it in a video as well recently. There's a decent amount of I don't know, telegraphing or just not necessarily breaking the mold of like it's second. I think it was 2nd and 7 or shorter. Um, he would like run whatever it was. I don't have the number in front of me. But like 70% of the time, whatever it was, a very high number. It's like okay, hey, 2nd and 7 or shorter, we're gonna get a run here. This is what Daboll's gonna do. And you know what? Like you can even go back and look at some of the other tendencies and things from Kellen Moore before when the Eagles hired him. There were some elements there in his offense too that was like, yeah, well, he's kind of going with some of those. There were some people that even said hitch routes, and the Saints ran those quite a bit this past year. Kellen had done that previously before getting to the Eagles. The Eagles offense ran them quite a bit, not anything at all to the extreme of what we saw this season, but they did run them with Kellen Moore. The part where it comes down to the sequencing and play calling, though, I think of the good ones versus non, is using that to break the tendencies. And Kellen Moore talked about that all the time, but it's setting up the defense to go, hey, look, here's the same look. Here's the same visual representation, but we're about to break it. And you keep it the same during the season most of the year. But then we saw a shift in the playoffs, and Kellen did that really, really successfully. It is true. Yes, there's some tendencies from Daboll, but he's at least proven that he can be an offensive coordinator in calling those plays and sequencing. So I'm not as concerned as I would be, like we've said all season, like, oh, well, KP's spamming hitches at a 50% rate again. And, it's like, that's all he knew how to do. That's all the calls that were coming in. Kilo with a 2. No, I'm saying, sorry, from the previous one. No, I'm saying Joe Brady's leaving the Bills for a head coaching job. Okay, I misinterpreted that. I don't know if he's trying to interview for a couple of those jobs, but I think he's probably gone regardless. I mean, maybe there's a head coach that comes in and says, no, we'll just want to keep you here. But the fact that he's interviewing for head coaching jobs and a new guy's coming in as the head coach, a lot of times, as we all understand and know, and Anthony was mentioning this a second ago too, you have guys that and you're like, oh, okay, head coach gets the job. Now let me select whoever my OC was, my previous one, or who I've worked for before or worked with before, and bring them into the job. So it wouldn't surprise me at all even if Joe Brady does not get a head coaching job if he's not the guy at OC for Buffalo.
Yeah, it feels like he's been interviewing for head coaching jobs forever, right? Was it the Eagles? Did they interview him in like 2021?
They did, yes. It was Sirianni,
so
Kellen Moore, and Joe Brady.
Yeah, so they were. He's been all over as far as head coaching candidate. Like almost every offseason, it feels like he's interviewing somewhere. He just hasn't landed a job yet, right? So it seems like maybe he's just going to be a career-long OC until he really capitalizes and is on a team that wins a Super Bowl like Kellen Moore, and then finally gets a job. Because we said the same thing about Kellen Moore, where he was just getting interviews, never got a job. And then it finally happened. So maybe he would actually view this as a good spot for himself if things don't work out, where he gets a head coaching job or it takes over in Buffalo.
Yeah, and shout out to Kellen. He did pretty good with the Saints. Like better than a lot of people expected. Didn't think they push the division like they did. Shake up things for the Bucks. The Bucks probably don't appreciate how things transpired, but they kind of did it to themselves too. Iron Arrow with a 2. He meant we need AJ. His drops don't matter. Okay, sorry, I could not make out that super chat, so I was trying to go with where I thought it was. Okay, we need AJ. His drops don't matter. Look, when AJ's locked in and he's wanting to be here and he's out there showing complete effort, yes, like there's no question. The Eagles offense, whoever he's playing for, but yes, the Eagles offense is 100% better when AJ Brown is on the field. Like we've seen the numbers, the stats, how incredible he is. I mean, was the best against man coverage 2 years ago. It's part of the reason that the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl. He's a guy that you had to account for even with the knee injury in the playoffs. He was used as a decoy because he couldn't do what he was doing during the regular season, but teams had to account for it. And the Eagles kept it under wraps enough to where teams had to respect it. They're like, no, well, AJ could break out. There could be something there in the playoffs. This past season, Obviously was not what we wanted from a number of stances. Play calling and execution, everything else does not help. But we all saw it. Like there's instances where he did not give full effort, where he very clearly has made plays in the past that we've seen him do. The drops you can add in there as well. So we'll see. Like I think we've mentioned this as well. It depends on who the OC comes in, and you got to imagine they're probably having conversations whenever that person does, and try to talk with AJ, perhaps see if that changes his stance, if he still wants to be traded, if he's locked in now because of some changes that are being talked about, or looking at whoever's offense it is and say, okay, cool, like we can actually get this thing to work. I don't know, but yeah, it's when he's locked in. Yeah, I don't think there's any denying what AJ can be.
Yeah, it seems like just real quick that AJ Brown. I don't think anybody's saying that like the Eagles trading AJ Brown is the best move for them from like a football standpoint, right? It just comes
Sure.
down to, is he happy? Is he going to be focused and does he want to be in Philadelphia essentially? If not, then they have to figure out the alternative.
Yeah. Christopher with a 5. Do you guys think that Christian Parker gets a defensive coordinator position with Green Bay, Dallas, or anyone? He's like the Jeff Stoutland of DBs. Would be huge if he stays. It would be huge if he stays. I'm really thinking that he gets the defensive coordinator position. I mean, you just hear about how everybody talks about him, his resume, his list of secondaries that he's coached, and all pros and players and everything else. And yes, you give credit to defensive coordinators who were with him on those, but the league, I mean, you see it every single year, but the league is ready to make that next hire of like, the young and up and coming coach, and make them that guy. And whoever can get ahead of it first is trying to, as best they can, like, oh, look what we did. So I would be shocked if he does not land with Green Bay or Dallas. I agree with the super chat though, like Christopher said. Hopefully, just keep him one more year, maybe. But I do think that we're eventually going to hear, oh, there you go. There's the official defensive coordinator position for CP.
Yeah, and that's something that I was worried about the second the Eagles were knocked out of the playoffs early, because I said it's like a gift and a curse, and I tweeted about it. I'm like, it's good because they should be able to get one of their top offensive coordinator candidates, but it's bad because they're probably going to lose a guy like Christian Parker or maybe a Clint Hurtt or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Christian Parker now has 2 interviews. The second that the Jeff Hafley hiring for the Dolphins was announced, I tweeted and I was like, they're like, Christian Parker worked there for 2 seasons, like they're going to need a DC now. And then like 2 hours later after that tweet, Jordan Schultz put out that the Packers requested an interview with Christian Parker. So it's like, that seems like, especially that, because he works, like he was on Matt LaFleur's staff already, like obviously he's not, that Matt LaFleur's not a defensive guy, but he was in the building. He's familiar with some of the players that are still there. So I think that's probably the spot that he would land in, which would be better than Dallas. But either way, it would still be tough to kind of see him go.
Yeah, and if Matt LaFleur is the head coach, obviously, and you see what the Packers were this past season, you can't knock them for necessarily getting a defensive coordinator who specializes in secondaries. So, need a little bit of help in that area. Jay Lee with 5. We're anxious to find out who the new OC will be to resolve our 2025 offensive trauma we all experienced from the Patullo experiment. LOL. Go Birds. Yes, we are all in that same boat, ready to move on and say, hey, there you go. There's our offensive coordinator. That's who it's going to be. S-Mid, I think the last super chat here before we get ready to wrap with a 2. Eric Bieniemy. I don't know why that name's getting thrown out there. He's going to Kansas City from all reports. He is going to be reunited with Andy Reid and Kansas City. And speaking of help, he was the Bears running backs coach running backs coach this past season. So did he learn enough from Ben Johnson and other areas there to get KC's running game back and going? Who knows? It feels like they need a different player there to begin with, but the Mahomes injury and everything else that they're dealing with, the Chiefs, they get along up, maybe. Who knows? They could just very quickly, but it feels like they've got an uphill battle. But Eric Bieniemy, that name out there, unless you're just a Chiefs fan, to let us know where he's going. He's not up for grabs. He is not a candidate that they would even consider. So I think that's it. I think that's the last one. If I just double check them, I think that's the last one there. And I appreciate you guys. Sorry for the quick jump early on, but went a little bit longer because of the breaking news with McDaniel, but he's officially at the Chargers. So we'll see who the Eagles get. Who do they go after? Is it Brian Daboll, Joe Brady, other 7 candidates that they've interviewed up to this point. There's several that I would not be as happy about, but it still would be positive, and maybe they could get the offense back on track. But we'll keep you guys posted as soon as we get the breaking news. We'll go live for that, of course, but more videos, more articles. Make sure to like and subscribe, and appreciate you guys as always. We'll see you. Go Birds.
Go Birds.